Welcome to Leadership Rules, where we believe leadership isn't just a role, it's a way of life. Whether you're leading a team, a community, or simply leading yourself, we're here to help you unlock the rules to lead your life with purpose and impact. I'm Nick Caniglio, joined by my co-host, Marnie Stockman, and together we authored Lead It Like Lasso. And today we are thrilled to have Derrick Kinney on the show with us.
Yeah, we are. So let me tell you a little bit about Derrick. Derrick is the founder of Good Money Framework and the creator of Simple Teen Success, which is how we found him. That is where he empowers students to build confidence, earn money, become difference making leaders. So former financial advisor turned purpose-driven educator, Derrick blends real-world lessons with character-based leadership to help the next generation lead with both heart and hustle. So how do we do there, Eric? What did I miss?
You covered all the bases. That was a great intro. I need my kids to hear that. The dad actually has some street cred.
So that's funny you say that, because people ask us why we wrote Lead It Like Lasso, and sometimes we'll say, well, the kids weren't listening, so we thought maybe if we were published authors that they would. So
that was our strategy. So before we kind of get into the conversation, Derrick, we typically like to start with all of our guests something that we call biscuits with the boss. Some quick rapid fire icebreaker questions. So you ready for this?
Let's go.
All right. First concert, best concert.
First concert. I don't recall the first, but the best was definitely Michael Bublé with my daughter. And what was fun about this was most concerts, you don't typically buy snacks, but Michael Bublé appeals to like this a little bit older audience. So literally, I caved into peer pressure. So I'm eating Sour Patch Kids as I'm watching Michael Bublé. But I'm a big Elvis fan. And so in the middle of the concert, Michael Bublé breaks out this Elvis tribute. Literally, I had tears in my eyes. My daughter was like laughing at me because I love Elvis. And to see somebody do an Elvis tribute so well. And then Bublé is he's so cool. It was a memorable concert. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm picturing the Sour Patch Kids like you're in a movie overeating. That's excellent.
So was a younger one in the audience. That's the funny thing.
I've been to Liberace, so I hear you on that. I was 9. So.
That's funny.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Black coffee, dark roast, no cream or sugar.
Oh, very specific. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Dog or cat?
Well, so I'm actually allergic to both of them, but we have a Labradoodle named Berkeley. And as you say that, my kids made a compelling case when they were younger. They said, Dad, we thought about this, and what about if you lived outside and we had a dog inside and you could come in and visit throughout the day? And I couldn't help but laugh. And I said, hey, kids, here's kind of an economic perspective. Dad pays for the house. Dad gets to live in the house.
Yeah.
But our dog is hypoallergenic.
Yeah.
It took me a while to believe, but it's actually true. And so we've had Berkeley now going on 10 years. So it's been great.
Oh, that's funny. Paper book or audio book or electronic book?
Definitely audiobook.
Audio.
For some reason, my ADD, it struggles with having the patience to flip pages. But what I will do, though, this is kind of crazy. When I do read a book and I like the book, I will literally tear the pages out of the book to what I'm going to implement. And this is going to sound terrible, but then I throw the book away. I know it sounds terrible, but I realize I'm never going to go back and look at the book again. So let's just save us all time. And I think it's the best way to honor the author. Would they want me to pay $20 and put the book on the shelf, or rip out pages and actually implement
and actually do it? Yeah, that one.
I think it's the best way to go.
So I'm curious, because you said ADHD, what speed do you listen?
Oh man, borderline like 1.25 to like 1.75. I feel like I'm in the fast lane on the highway.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I started listening to something the other day, and it was at 1.5 speed. I was like, this is a little too fast for me, but I really wanted to get over with. But yeah, 1.25 is perfect. All right, let's start ramping up a little bit. Leadership, is it more art or science?
Good question. I don't know if I would use either of those words. I just know that it's people.
Yeah.
And it's present. And
I like
whatever those words used to describe those two things, I'm with people and I'm present with those people. That's what I have found to be the best leadership.
Okay. That is unique, and I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. All right, let's get into this. So, if anybody has heard of you, looked you up on LinkedIn, seen you on TV, which I have, you see you're all about the world of finance. And we're curious because we kind of found you through the whole world of helping out teens. We're curious how you jumped, not you didn't leave the world of finance, but how you jumped from the world of finance to helping teens. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, yeah. And first of all, it was because we had a problem. When I graduated high school, I realized that no successful people were coming back to my high school and giving me a perspective of what the real world could look like. Everybody said take history and science and math and everything's going to be fine. But deep inside, I think all of us as seniors kind of knew that sounds more like a story and not really reality.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated high school, went on to college, but when I decided to launch my business, I had a passion for investing in young people. And whether it was teaching high school kids about money or practical life skills, I just enjoyed it. And what happened was my kids went to a school and there just wasn't the business knowledge that was there. And I just had this idea of I want to teach teens practical life skills because a lot of them felt overlooked, they felt disconnected, not seen, not heard. But I waited. I didn't want to be that pushy adult parent that forced themselves on the school and then my kids were like, oh, drop me off 3 miles from school,
Yeah.
please, Dad. You know, that deal. And so I waited for a student to approach me. And one day, a young man named Jared Steele, who was a junior, he said, Mr. Kinney, I've got this idea. Would you? And I just said, yes. He said, well, do you want me to finish the idea? I said, no, no, no. Hopefully what you're going to say is what I'm hoping you're going to say. Let's start a business club. And I said, yes. So Jared was the kind of kid that when the school sold pizza, he would buy his own pizza and undercut the school. Okay. So
Mhm.
he was that kind of guy where he was the square peg that they try to jam into the round hole. And so many teens I found were like that. They had all these dreams and goals and visions, but nobody really listened to them and gave them sort of this open highway to slam their gas pedal down and let the Lamborghini go. And so what I did is I would go to the school twice a month for about 45 minutes. But the key was you had to have their favorite candy so that they had a reason to be there. So they would look for the Sour Patch or the Reese's or the Hershey's or whatever else they wanted. And one day I said, hey, just out of curiosity, how many of you are here, and honest answers only, you're here only for the candy? Half the hands go up. I said, that's great. I said, hey, while you're enjoying your candy, just think of one takeaway that you could apply. Well, it ended up years later, it was that group of students who typically got the most out of business club because they were focused on just the one takeaway. So we would teach people how to look people in the eye, how to shake hands, how to say nice to see you and not nice to meet you. You know, one
Mhm.
of the things that would mortify teenagers is they would say to an adult, oh, it is so nice to meet you, thinking they're following all the proper etiquette. Then the adult would say, oh no, Tim, we've met before. And then
Yep.
Tim, wah, wah, wah. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, now they're embarrassed. Now they're put on the spot. And that's the worst thing as a teen. So now we're teaching them just practical ways like, hey, it's always, Nick, it is so nice to see you. Marnie, it is so nice to see you. Then it makes you wonder, have we met before? So it just
Yep.
flips the script. But that was the goal, was doing this alongside having my financial planning business just because I loved it. I didn't know that doing that would actually grow my business because adults happen to love when you invest in teens in the community and
Yeah.
when you invest in their teens. It's like this business door that swings wide open that can really grow a business.
Well, you may or may not know this, but I was a high school assistant principal and math teacher and administrator in the school system. So, like, I feel every bit of that. And whenever I did character counts, I volunteered and did the character counts coaching. So, yes, we would show up with the donuts or whatever edible arrangement, fruits, whatever it took. So, you very much speak our language, which we knew when we saw you for the first time on Bob Berg's podcast.
Cheers for
And
Bob
we,
Berg.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
man.
No, for yes, 100%. So we believe everyone, especially teenagers, need to run their lives like a business. We believe everyone is a leader of their life, their career, their character, etc. So how do we help young people step into that mindset early? With
Well,
Sour Patch Kids, is the trick Sour Patch Kids? Is that what we're
Sour
getting
Patch
out of this?
Kids. That's right. It's interesting because no parent wants to be that parent that tells their teens what to do.
And
I
yet
think one of
so
the
many
biggest,
of them do.
yeah, 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 they want lessons and not lectures. And one of the things I learned, and this goes back to COVID, we would go around the table at dinner time and we would play this game called highs and lows. A lot of people call it different things. It was like, what was the high point of your day, the low point of your day? And I realized my version of my story was pretty boring. I met with a few people, I called a few people, did this and that. And my kids were like, okay, snooze fest,
Yeah,
let's move
that's a
on.
horrible job you have, Dad.
Horrible thing, right? It's like, but then one day I made this investment. I think I lost like $5,000 that day. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to share this around the table. So my turn came around and I said, hey guys, I need to share something with you. I lost $5,000 today. And for the first time, you could have heard a pin
Silence.
drop.
Got their
You're like,
attention, huh?
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, Dad really screwed up. This is going to be really good. Let's listen in on this. I said, yeah, I picked this investment, my best possible decision making, but it didn't work. They're like, what? How did you lose that? Well, suddenly now, because of my loss and my mistake, they're engaging. They're like, Dad, this is so cool. How could you make such a dumb mistake like this? And they're teasing me. But what I learned was I have been wasting too much time as a parent. I was trying to be the perfect parent, thinking that's how I could teach the lesson. But oh
Yeah.
no, the more imperfect parent I was, that was the better version of me as a parent because my teens would listen. So now what I learned was two things. If I'm wanting to talk to one of my kids, now they're 26, 24, 22, and 20 now, so different age group, but if I want to talk to them about something, often we'll go in the Jeep, pick their favorite burger place to go to, listen to their playlist. And for my boys, I look straight ahead. There's typically not a whole lot of eye contact going on.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And at stoplights, suddenly the gusher gushes. My son starts talking and stuff, and I'm like, how did this happen? And what I realized is if I can tell them, hey, can I tell you guys about a mistake I made today? They're all ears. And so that was one thing that I learned was as a parent, think of your imperfections as your superpower, not something you want to shy away from. And if you want to teach your kids business or money, do not believe the lie that says, well, I'm not successful with money. I'm a screw up with money. Look at all the credit card debt I've got, or I've never owned a business. What can I teach them? You just want to be the best believer in your teens and offer to say, hey, let me walk alongside you. I see great potential in you, son or daughter. Let's figure out how to give you the resources to help make your dreams come true. See, that's how stories get told years and years from now.
There's so much wisdom in all the things that you said. We can write a blog article on that response alone, Derek. And it's funny you kind of you put a name to something that I do often with my child, and I never really thought about it consciously, which was, I talk about the failures, and I don't know again if I connected the dots, but that is the time that my son in particular would engage most in me with me, right? And it's not about preaching. It's not. We like to say, tell stories, don't tell facts, right? And
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a derivative on what you said. Don't tell them what to do or preach to them. Tell them stories, and you'll be pleasantly surprised on how they react to that. So I love that answer. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
So, you mentioned a couple of these earlier, but we always like to bring our beliefs into play here. We talk a lot about the fact that leadership is earned and not given. Besides the stories that you shared earlier, can you think of any small leadership moments that teens overlook, right? Besides the see you, meet you, you mentioned a couple before, but that really could help them earn influence with their peers, teachers, or even their future employers.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a big believer in that's normal. How you're feeling right now is normal because that's how you are feeling. Therefore, it's normal to you. And one of the things that I will talk about is let's say that you're about to walk into Target or Kroger or Costco or Sam's or the coffee shop, and there's a likelihood you might see a parent that you know. And so I like to call this the retail store play. And so you just want to mentally in your mind say, okay, if I see a parent of someone I know, what will I do? So you have pre-decided what your action is going to be. Now, this is going to sound so simple, but in the world of adult land, there is this secret club. And in the secret club, all of us talk about teenagers. And by the way, the list is very, very short, that engage us, that we view as responsible, that we respect, that we would be willing to have them come watch our house as we're on vacation for the week, watch our dog, do the summer internship. That list is very, very small. And so as a teen, you have an automatic exemption when you can just stand out and engage an adult. Okay. So what you want to do then is there's this moment. And when I talk to teens, I will ask them this. I said, okay, here's the deal. You've just walked into Target and you see your friend's parents, but they don't see you yet. What do you do? A, do you confidently walk up and say, well, hi, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, it is so nice to see you? Or do you dip into the chip aisle and hope they don't see you? It's typically 75% say chip aisle.
At least,
chip
I'm
aisle
sure.
all the way. Okay. And I say, okay, why is that? And they say, well, I don't know what to say. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to feel foolish. And does it even really matter? I said, okay, all of those are valid and all of those are normal concerns. But I said, here's the deal. Adults are the doorway to opportunity. They're the key. When adults know you, like you, and trust you, you get part of the adult secret club that people talk about, and now you're available for opportunities because the list is so short. So you just want to walk up and say, well, hi, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, it is so nice to see you. And then what they'll often do, and I tell the teens this, it's like YouTube Parent Training 101. They will always ask, well, how is school going? It just adults can't help but ask, how is school going? It just happens. We're just like genetically wired that way. And so the key is you need to have an engaging answer. If you just say, oh, school's great, well, you did engage the adult, points for you, but there's no engaging answer, which doesn't give you the full credit. So instead you want to say something that you are excited about. And you want to have it in your back pocket. You're excited about the part-time job, the class you're taking, college in the future, a cause you care deeply about, anything at all. You get to pick. It's choose your own adventure time. And just say, you know, one thing I'm excited about, I'm taking this class in school that's really interesting to me. And the parent's going to say, what? First of all, they're going to say, what?
Yeah.
What teen is caring about anything? And so it just engages you, and then they remember you, okay? And then you can also say, you know, here's my plan. I'm so excited about the summer, and here's what I'm working on. Just have something that sounds forward thinking, and you stand up. Then you just simply say, hey, I know y'all are here to shop. Great to see you both. Have a great day. And then boom, literally it takes less than 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes can be an investment that literally can pay off big time down the road. But it's all about pre-deciding and just practicing and recognizing how you're going to feel. And can I tell you a quick story about that?
Yeah.
So I interviewed a guy named Mark Randolph. He was the co-founder of Netflix. Okay. And so Mark tells me this story about his teen. His teen loved to skateboard in these big bowls. And what he talked about was most people, when they get on a skateboard, they look down and it causes them to worry about falling. And then what most people do is they move their feet to the end of the skateboard thinking that will help them not fall. The problem is the way the weight distributes itself, automatically almost everybody falls. So instead what he said is you got to get right up on the front of it and face about a 1 second moment of fear. And if you can lean on the skateboard and go right in and put your body all the way in, you're almost guaranteed not to fall. And I thought that was a good visual, especially for teenagers, of like, I don't want to do this. I get butterflies in my stomach. I feel nervous. That's normal. That's just normal. So embrace it and just lean into it, and you'll be more confident. You will go home knowing that I crushed it. I crushed Target today. That's awesome.
I want a Target. I love it. It's interesting because we just wrote about the notion of a pre-mortem, which is like pre-thinking. Now, that's typically pre-thinking. What if something is going to go bad? Plan for it to go bad and avoid it. But my son used this strategy, not for Target. First, Nick knows well, if my son saw you in Target, he would chase you down whether you were looking or not. My daughter would be in the chip aisle with the other 75%, but my son would hunt you down. But same thing for networking, not if you know a parent, but when he was applying for a job, stalked all the people he knew who was going to be in the interview ahead of time, as you should on LinkedIn appropriately. And one of them ended up being the mayor in our neighboring town. And he recognized her as he was walking into the building. So she was the head of the whole department, definitely not the hiring manager. But he said, "Oh my goodness, aren't you the mayor of my neighboring town?" And at the end of the year, so he got the job. She made sure he was connected to a hiring manager, yada, yada. At the end of the year, she came up and said, like, "I'm so glad this has worked out because I remember talking to you about," like, she remembered him because he was able to make that connection. It doesn't take a ton. The other thing that you said that I think is super important is that you also gave them an exit path, because a lot of folks they'll make that first connection, but then they're thinking like, I don't know how to stop this conversation. I've seen mom in this. We're going to be stuck in Target for 4 hours. So the fact that you just said, I just wanted to say hi, good to see you, and walk away, like, it doesn't have to be any more graceful than that. That is graceful enough.
Thank you. Well, kudos to your son. That's an inspiring story right there. I love that.
Yeah, he gets the people award in the house for sure.
And he's now part of a secret club of the mayor of the neighboring town. So
Yes, he does
I
like
love
to
that
collect
term,
his
the
club.
secret club. Yeah.
So, I want to kind of jump to the world of finance piece for a bit. How do you see financial education impacting leadership development, especially for teens, but maybe for everyone, because a lot of folks didn't get that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things about money, and this is what led me to become a financial advisor in the first place, I saw my parents struggle. These were hardworking people, and then I saw their friends struggle, also hardworking people, and I just realized there's something they're missing. There's this whole other group of people who are working hard. Everybody's working hard, but some people are moving ahead financially, and some people appear to be stuck. And I thought to myself, that is just not right. Well, what I realized was there's often these bad money beliefs that get instilled at a very, very young age. And let me tell you a quick story. So I was visiting with a woman. She was a well-respected person in our community. And I happened to get a voicemail message. This would have been probably 10 years ago. And I recognized this woman's voice. And she said, "Derrick, you've got to call me back. They're about to send me to jail." I said, "What are you talking about?" And so I quickly called her back and I said, "Hey, first of all, why do you think they're going to send you to jail?" She said, "Well, I got this letter in the mail that said I didn't move money from my savings to checking, and I wrote a check and the money wasn't there." And I said, "Okay, well, that's basically like a non-sufficient funds letter. Why do you think they're going to send you to jail?" So she tells me this story. She says, "Derrick, when I was like 7 years old, I overheard my dad receive a call from a store owner that he had gone to buy school supplies and clothes for her and her sister, and he had accidentally bounced a check. And the store owner said, 'I'm going to send the cops to your house and have you arrested because I know you bounced this check intentionally.'" Well, she happened to overhear that, and because of that and that the trauma that created, she grew up believing that if you make a financial mistake, that you are simply not good with money. This was a woman on the outside who looked very, very successful, but on the inside, she was like this wilting flower, not taking my advice, avoiding all risk, not confident. And I said, "You know what? Let's come in the office next week. I want to unpack this." And what we realized was her belief system that she had heard from a young age was holding her back financially.
Yeah.
And once we addressed these things within an alarmingly short amount of time, like 3 months, she got a vice president job, got a $25,000 a year raise. Most importantly, she started taking my advice, which was important. But all of that because she had this belief inside that was bigger than what she knew and the impact it was having on her. And that story taught me a valuable lesson that just because people look the part on the outside, they may not match that on the inside.
Yeah.
In Texas, we like to call that big hat, no cattle. It's someone who looks like they're very, very wealthy, but when you look at their statements, they have borrowed everything to the hilt. And so this is a lifeline for parents who are watching or listening to this. And that means that whatever your past bad money beliefs are, recognize it for you that it doesn't have to be true. Your past has passed. Let's put those in the rear view and not in the windshield. But second of all, don't believe the lie that if you are not good with money, you don't even like managing money, you're not good with business, all those things don't have to be true for you to teach your teen what to do. You just have to believe in them and give them resources and give them a pathway to success. So I believe that money is like the great equalizer. If you just even add money to the S&P 500 index, you have about a 95% chance of beating the return of most professional fund managers. And what I found when I grew my financial planning business, it was a top 1% firm in the country. I didn't have to be the smartest. I just needed to make other people feel the smartest, but also I needed to make them feel heard and valued and seen. And could I ask them questions to pull out of them what their goals and dreams and aspirations were? And I was simply the person to walk alongside them to help them reach that. I didn't overpromise. I didn't say, I'm going to guarantee we're going to get this amount of money. If we made a mistake, we owned up to it fast. But just walking alongside them. And I think that's a lesson parents can take with their kids. You're not there to be the expert. You're not called to be the professor. Just walk alongside and just affirm their beliefs and what's important to them. Because ultimately the game you're playing is not to parent right now, but you're parenting the person they're becoming possibly 5 to 10 years from now. Play the long game and don't choose to die on every single hill.
Sound advice. So I'm curious, since we're talking about money, do you have an opinion on where we are in a society in terms of the financial literacy of teens? I mean, how much better of a job do we need to do? Do you think we're doing a good enough job? Where do you see society as a whole in that regard?
Well, I think that we're struggling from a financial literacy standpoint. But what I'm hesitant to do, though, is put all of the burden on the school system and say, okay, you need to teach my kids how to manage money, because that doesn't always get translated into real life. And do we need to have that education? Yes. But I think we want to be very careful about who we put in front of our kids. It's one thing to have a teacher who teaches it. It's another thing to have an entrepreneur who is in the game, who can inspire the teens and so forth. But what I would tell parents is, just like I recommend you review your net worth on a quarterly basis, I call it the report card for adults. It doesn't lie, it just tells you the truth. Have a money meeting with your kids on a quarterly basis and just say, hey, just want to talk with you. I see some gifts. It's always good to affirm. I see some gifts inside of you that maybe you could be an entrepreneur or a business owner or this or that. Let's talk through some of the mistakes I've made recently, or some things where I see you doing well that could help you actually make money. Because ultimately, I'm a big believer in what I call, and I just made this up, but it's called the Economic Education Empowerment Fund. So as an advisor, I used to advise my clients, okay, go into the education IRA or the education fund, so you have dedicated college money. Now I've changed my tune. I did the past couple of years, and that was more and more, we can't rely on college to be the main educator and really goal setter for our kids. Ideally, you want to have your kids having a business or having some entrepreneurial experience while they're even in elementary school or high school. So take 80% of the money you would earmark just for college and put that into a non-college dedicated brokerage account to give you flexibility. So if your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter says, hey, I've got this idea, great, enroll them in the YouTube course. Get them a course on basics of investing. Have them go to a session with an entrepreneur. All of those things are valuable investments in them that you're putting their seeds in the ground, and it's a good way for them to watch it bloom, even in the absence of you being the money or the business expert. I just feel like it starts at home by the example you set and not capping your potential for your kids. Never saying things like, well, in our family, there's the haves and the have-nots. There's part of the have-nots. And, you're probably only going to make X amount of money in your life. That's going to be the cap. Just take a big eraser and let's get rid of those words.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the questions I was going to ask was about like what would you have folks believe for themselves, but I think it's believe in themselves is kind of what you've discussed. Like understand who you are, and that knowing, because you've mentioned a few times, like the kids need to understand for themselves, believe in them, right? Because that will help them grow. I think that's critically important for sure. And self-awareness, we've seen multiple studies how self-awareness is the number one indicator of leadership success moving forward. So know who you are so you can grow is kind of critically important. So this podcast is called Leadership Rules. And one thing we always ask is, what is one leadership rule that you always live by or think everybody should live by?
Well, this was a rule that I followed in my business, and it helped us quite a bit. And that is that if you ever make a mistake, you want to own it fast. And I'll give you a quick example. Like in the investment business, money is at stake. So let's say there was an example one time, a client, I suggested that they buy a certain investment, and they agreed to it. We explained the pros and the cons, but our team didn't make the trade. And that particular investment went up about $5,000. And so one advisor said, Derek, just don't tell the client. They'll never know. Just buy it now. And I said, no, I will know. And ultimately, they will probably figure it out. So I called them back and said, hey, we just made a big mistake, but we're going to make it whole to you. It's going to cost me personally $5,000. They're like, no. I said, no. This is part of the deal. You're paying me to provide great service to you. So sometimes mistakes I own them. But the key was to own it, but also then to feel worse about it than they do. And learn the wording of just like, I just want you to know, Nick, we feel terrible about this. I feel absolutely horrified about this. I can't believe we did this, but we're going to make this up to you. Well, oftentimes then the client, you won when the client says, Derek, I think you feel worse about this than I do. It's okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then they know they felt heard and valued, because so many people make a mistake and then they make it your fault. I'm like,
Yep.
no. That is one way to automatically cut any professional's future success.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great rule. We've not heard anything even close to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there is so much new stuff in this episode that I can't wait to get it out the door. So if folks want to learn more nuggets from Derrick, where do they find you? What's the best way to learn more about Derrick and everything that you do?
Well, my passion project is simpleteensuccess.com. Simpleteensuccess.com is the resource that I believe every teen should have and can literally change their life. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at Derrick Kinney, where I blend in business, money, and teen success all together. So those would be the two great places to check us out.
Perfect. Well, we will go ahead and add those to our show notes so people have ready access to those when they're listening. Derrick, we cannot thank you enough for joining us. This has been it's truly been a pleasure from our perspective, and you really have shared a lot of wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Nick, Marnie, it's been great. I was looking forward to this, and you guys are such great hosts. It was a real honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.